Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 272 of A Year of Change. Today's documentary, well, it's not really documentary. It's a reality TV show and I'm not a big fan. I never have been. Years and years and years ago, I watched the first Survivor. And then I was done with it. I don't even think I really watched the rest of it because I remember hearing about who won, but I don't remember actually watching it. Because it was interesting, it was different. But in general, I'm not a reality TV fan. I just find it to be just pretty much the equivalent of a freak show. It's the modern day sideshow in a circus. So this is why I've been hesitant to put this up. And what it is, the main reason I think why is because it's presented under the guise of helping people. But in the end, it really is still just a way of, I feel anyway, of going like, oh my God, look at them. So, but I'm going to put it up just so that I can get another opinion, a second opinion. Because when I look at stuff like this, I have a very set opinion on these things. Reality TV in general, I think it's ridiculous. You know, you're just watching pieces of shit on TV for the most part. Just doing God knows, like, no one. Anyway, we'll get into that because that's a subject for a whole other thing. But in general, I just find it ridiculous. I've never watched them. I've never enjoyed them. I mean, you hear about it all the time, and just the fact that some people are famous just for the fact that they're famous, like they don't do anything, is just infuriating. Anyway, and for those of you out there, oh, you're just jealous. No, not really, not that. It's just the fact that they don't. You're not getting anything out of it. I mean, aside from the entertainment value or shock value, whatever it is. But in general, I've never been a big fan. But the show that I'm putting up today is quite an old one, actually. It's from like 2010, 2011. It's called Too Fat for 15. And what it is, there's a subtitle. Fighting Back. There we go. It shows this fat camp. There's no other word for it. I was going to say it's called Wellspring, but it's supposed to be, it's a weight loss program thing. It's a fat camp. And this show follows a group of kids when like their parents have sent them here just because their weight is getting so out of control that the parents don't really know what to do anymore. And this is where I have my issue I don't like shows like The Biggest Loser and stuff like that either because it sort of puts forward an unrealistic expectation. The Biggest Loser has been known for, just when it shows the amount that people lose, it's because they're working out for 5 and 6 hours a day. Their calories are cut down to absolutely nothing. So of course you're going to lose weight. And for the time being, yes, it works. Would love to see the numbers 5 years down the road from people. I'm sure there are some that are going to keep it off. But in general, we know that just like any diet or any program that we're in, when we start it, everything is great. We're gung-ho. We go through, and then we lose the weight. We think, great, I can go back to my old habits. So this fat camp, basically what they do is they take kids in for a month or two and do the same thing that everyone else does. They do the exercise. They do a few extra things. They do teach them how to cook. They teach them, healthy eating habits and things like that. And while they're there, it does work. I will admit it. I have to admit it because it's true. It does work while they're there. And as you sort of go through the show, you see that kids are making progress. The problem I have with it, though, there's a number of different problems. Number one, the longest program that they have is 9 weeks. So you go in for 2 months, 2 months and a week, and you just like any other diet, you have things set out for you. They sort of point the way. And then after that, you're done. You go back to your home. You go back to your old habits. You go back to all the stuff that, nothing's really been addressed. The other one is, it's about $2,000 a week for these kids to go. And that, I think, is where I have the real problem. And I understand that, there are personal trainers there, and there are what they call lifestyle coaches, which, from what I can gather, now, granted, I've only seen the first episode. I will admit that. Because I got so angry at it, I didn't want to watch the rest. But it's something that I think, is it just me? Am I the only one who's thinking this? So this is the reason why I'm putting it up. But They have lifestyle coaches, which, as far as I can tell, are people just basically paid to listen. And from what I've seen, are paid to dismiss a lot of the stuff that these kids are feeling. And then they have a personal trainer who said he was fat when he was a kid, but by the time he was in middle school or high school, he was down to a normal weight. So it's a little difficult to sort of make that connection with someone who's in their 30s now that had a bout of 5 years when they were obese. Yes, of course, they're going to remember it, but the majority of their life has been really fitness. And you do see this, the same thing, like when we first started this, and I had this conversation a couple of times, when I told you that there was someone that said, well, you should start with a 5K. One of the things that they get these kids to do, and I should clarify, it's not just because of their kids. It's just because that's what the camp is. If these were adults, I'd probably be thinking the same thing. That they start them out and say, okay, first thing we're going to try to do is to do a mile, and we're going to time you. So they want you to run as fast as you can, or as much as you can. And I mean, there are kids there that are 3 and 4 and 500 pounds. That this is your first step, is to get them to try to run a mile. Even walking a mile is a huge accomplishment for someone who's 300 pounds. And I know because I was, and still very close to it, but. So I have an issue with that. The main thing, though, is the money. And it's not it's only for rich kids. I mean, there are kids that, their churches sent them there. There are kids that had to raise money just to get there. I think what bothers me, though, is for $2,000 a week, you should be doing a hell of a lot more than just showing someone how to exercise and how to eat properly. They do address, they have like group therapy and things like that, but in the episode that I saw, they sort of wrote out, well, here's what everyone's feeling, and just talking about kids being homesick, because kids are kids. And the person's like, well, how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to set that aside? Like, how about dealing with it? How about acknowledging it? There is one scene where they have this person's coach talking with this kid, and she's the youngest one there. She's obviously very upset. She doesn't want to be there, which is understandable, but they're very dismissive. And I don't know if it's just that one person or if it was just how the show was cut. I just bit myself, ow, or how it was edited. But it just seemed as if they were, so what's the problem? And they start telling them, well, just smile. It'll be fine. And you can see the kids just in their head just go, you know what, fuck it. You don't care. So I'm just going to shut up and just agree with you. And the person's like, oh, no, they really did just say, if you smile, it makes you happy. So they're dealing with any of the issues, the myriad of issues that we have that lead to us overeating and lead to us being obese or anything like that. And you would think for $2,000 a week, yeah, you should be doing it. The longer that you go, the more they cut back, but it's still like $15,000, $20,000 to go for 2 months. And for that amount of money, then there should be some follow-up. There should be a carryover to when that camp is done. Yes, you have to pay for your staff and everything else, and you may have a high success rate while the kids are there, but holy shit, for $2,000 a week, you can hire a butler for $2,000 a week. Get them to cook all your foods. You can hire a personal trainer for $2,000 a week. There's a whole slew of stuff that you can do for $2,000 a week. And I just find that is really just, it just sort of stuck with me that they're charging a tremendous amount of money. So yes, essentially it's people that are either going to be going into debt or people that can afford it. So it's just either rich people or people that are going to end up going into debt for this. And after 2 months, you're on your own, is how it seems. And there are some that sort of follow through. They do have some kids that come back the following year. And there are some that have, lost a tremendous amount of weight. There are some kids that have lost over 200 pounds. So yes, obviously it works. But charging that much for something and not even having a guarantee to begin with. Even when you go on their website, there is like a little FAQ thing there. And one of them says, well, all the other fat camps, they, what's to stop the kids from gaining the weight back and what makes you so different? They don't even answer the question. They simply just say, oh, no, well, our record, no fat camps do follow-ups, but our records show that only about 10 to 15% actually keep the weight off. They completely ignore the question. They don't say anything about what am I paying $2,000 a week for? And, on the other hand, of course, part of me is thinking, what the hell are you doing spending $2,000 a week for your kid? Take the initiative. And if there's so many people that are out there that are saying, well, we just don't know what to do. Take the $2,000 that you were going to spend for 1 week and pay someone to teach you what you need to do. Go to a dietitian. Go to a personal trainer. Start learning something. and say, okay, here's what we need to do in order to change things, because their kids are dying. You have kids that are like 12 and 13 and 14 years old that weigh more than I did. And I mean, I still outweigh the vast majority of people. Don't get me wrong. I still haven't hit my halfway point yet. But I can't imagine paying $2,000 to say, okay, I'm going to go, or I'm going to say $2,000 even for 2 weeks, because their price range right now is $2,000 for a week. They have, well, that's how it averages out. They have like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8, and 9. I don't know what the 9th week is for. But I mean, the prices, it's obviously you're getting more of a deal the longer that you go, but you're still paying $15,000 for 2 months worth. So for that amount of money, I mean, that's, for some people, that's half a year's salary for 2 months, so that you can exercise, eat healthy, and hopefully get to the bottom of why we are the way that we are. And I just think that money could be well spent in other places. You can go, hire someone to come into your house for $2,000 a week and have them come in 2 days a week, prepare your food, tell you what you need to eat, clean out your cupboards, get rid of all the stuff, have them do your shopping. I mean, it's an insane amount of money. But just like the surgery and the diet pills and the miracle cures and everything else, when you get to that point of desperation where you think, I need to do something. I don't care what it is. I'm willing to try anything to get this weight off. And yes, some of you out there are going, okay, did you try salad? And did you try exercise? Well, yes, but we've already discussed that, so we aren't going to get into that. But when you get to that point where you think, I'm willing to try anything, of course, you're going to shell out as much money as you can if you think that this is it. This is what's going to do it. And, I mean, it affects the parents, obviously, not just financially, but emotionally. I mean, they're separated from their kids for a couple of months because it's not like a short commute. Parents are welcome to visit, but it's a very, very long drive to get out there. Kids are going, I mean, just like any other kid at camp. They're homesick, except that they're also getting up at 6:30 in the morning. They're, doing exercise. They're, going to therapy. They're still doing regular school. They're doing all the other stuff that goes along with it. And when you see, an 11 or 12-year-old kid saying, this is it for me, this is my last resort. At 12 years old, and this is your last resort, I understand that, because I've always been the fat kid. I was always the fattest one in my family. I was always the fattest one at school. So I understand that feeling when you think, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do after this. And I think that says something as well, that, if you're like 11 or 12 years old and you're to that point already, then holy shit, parents, you need to do something. You really, really do. Because as adults, and we had this discussion a long time ago as well, as adults, we can make our own decisions. We can say, you know what, I've decided to eat shit for the rest of my life. I'm going to eat like a pig. I'm not going to do any exercise. It's our body. We can do whatever we want. It's fine. When it comes to a kid, and especially when it comes to your kid, then you should be saying, no, damage is done for me, so even if you don't improve on what you've been doing with yourself, when you can see what your kid is destined for, when you can see the heartache and the abuse and the teasing and the bullying and just the depression and all the other emotional problems that go hand in hand with being obese, when you see that starting and you still don't do anything about it, then you're contributing to it, just like the fast food does, and just like the lack of exercise does, and just like all the cakes and cookies and everything else, and not buying vegetables, and letting them have 10 sandwiches at once. And no, I'm not blaming parents 100% of the time. However, the only food that your kid is going to eat is stuff that you're preparing in the house. It's the stuff that you're bringing into the house, I should say. And no, you're not going to be able to stop them from going out and buying stuff when you're not there. But if you have an environment at home where you're eating properly, and it doesn't have to be health food, you don't have to be vegetarians, you don't have to be vegans, you don't have to say, well, we can only eat fish because it's healthy fats. You can eat normally. You can eat a well-balanced diet. And if you have that atmosphere at home, just like anything else, it's going to rub off on them. And it is going to help. It's not going to cure it. It's not going to prevent it 100%, but you're going to eliminate that contributing factor. Everything else, you don't really have a lot of control over. You don't have control over the fast food that they're going to be seeing, that they're going to be buying. You don't have control over the soft drinks that they're buying. Any of that stuff, that's out of your hands. But in your home, you have a little bit more control. And especially where you know what we've gone through as kids, to willingly put another person through that and know what they're headed for is just, it's cruel, because it's something that you can change, or it's something that you can help change anyway. And for those of you out there, and I know this is easy to say because I don't have kids, for those of you out there that do have kids that are, running into these problems and things like that, again, you're not going to cure it, you're not going to necessarily prevent it, but you can eliminate that one contributing factor in your home. And although you may hate that kind of food, you might not want to have, vegetables in the house. You might think, I like pizza, I like ribs, I like nachos, so do I. But if you have a kid that is headed for where we were, then something has to be done. Anyway, I'm going to stop lecturing because now he's just sounding like a douchebag. Getting back to the show, this is part of I went way off topic here. But part of the reason why I'm putting this up there is because this is why. I get really pissy about, people that are sort of letting their kids get to a point where we were. Because we've done it to ourselves, and there's not a lot that we can do. We can't blame anybody for it. It's basically, this is how, and I'm going to say this is how we were raised. This is the lifestyle that we've chosen. This is the business we've chosen. But it's a little easier when you can sort of mold someone into say, okay, you know what? You're 200 pounds at 10 years old. Obviously, there's a parenting factor in there that needs to be dealt with. So with this, but shelling out $2,000 a week is ridiculous. You simply don't need to do that. And I understand, though, when people say, it works. While they're there, yes, it works. And there are some kids that are coming out of there after 2 months and they've lost 70 pounds. There's someone that went back for 2 years and she came out, she weighs less than the amount she actually lost. So she weighed something like 240 when she came out. And she had lost over 260 pounds. So yes, while they're there, it does work. And for some, they're going to carry that with them because we've seen it. Once we get that momentum going and you want to stay, losing, you don't want to either plateau or worse yet, gain. So yeah, that gives you that little bit of a drive to say, okay, I want to keep my eating habits the way that they have been. I want to stay on this track because I know that it's working. But this is another thing too. I'm sort of all over the place with this one. There's that fake sense of, and I see this a lot. This isn't just this show. I see it all the time. I see it at work. I see it, with, parents and their kids, you can sort of understand. But seeing adults do this at work is really just weird, where there's that fake sense of excitement. And you hear people do that when they're talking to little kids and trying to get the child engaged. And they're like, what's your name? Billy. Oh, that's great. That really weird. Like, why are you so fucking excited about absolutely everything? And they do have that as well with this. And part of me is thinking, okay, yeah, they're kids. You're trying to, some of them are like 14, 15, 16 years old. They're probably not buying it. But the fact that you're doing this to say, okay, I understand you're trying to encourage them. When they do their weigh-in, which, that's another thing I'm going to get into. When they do their weigh-in at the beginning of the week, there are kids that are getting on there, and yes, they've lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. The person goes, good, and then goes back down to the next person. There's no acknowledging that they've made any progress. And they stand up and cheer when they do the smallest thing. And then the moment of truth, when, let's face it, that's what we're looking for. That, to see those numbers go down, and it's really anticlimactic for them, which is just terrible. For me anyway, I just think it was kind of shitty that they're like, oh, you've lost 10 pounds. Yeah, good job. And then just move on to the next one. Have that same, if you're going to have that much fake enthusiasm, at least do it when they're doing their weigh-in. But the weigh-in, and they do measurements as well, they do all these things in front of everyone else. And that's where that abject humiliation comes in that I really disagree with. And it's one thing to sort of volunteer it and say, okay, you know what? We've seen with all the different YouTubers that are up there that, yes, they're going to put themselves out there. They're going to say, here's what I look like. Here's where I'm hopefully headed. And I want you to follow along with me. Because that's their decision to say, you know what? I want people to see my progress. Starting from, day one all the way up. But even now, I've shared my weight. I'm still not going to do body shots because that's disgusting. But I can't imagine going in a public area with 20 other people and having someone measure me and read out my measurements or weigh me and read out my weight. It's just, that is something I really disagree with. And I don't know if that's part of it is to humiliate them into action. But, like, holy shit, how many times have we seen that? It just does not work. It makes things worse. And, I mean, some of them, obviously, they absolutely hate it there. And it grows on them, though, because, they get into a routine, it starts working, they see results, so some of them do come back. So that's why it's been sort of a, do I put it up, do I not put it up? Oh, I've been going on far too long, I'm sorry. Anyway, because part of me is thinking, you know what, it's humiliating, it's way too expensive, I just find that really fucking shady. The amount of stuff that they're doing there, you can get for half the price in your own home. I understand why people are doing it, though, but there's, we've seen it too many times where people are just so desperate that, I mean, they have no qualms about fleecing them. So on one hand, I'm looking at this going, here are all the things that I disagree with. I think it's just sort of a sideshow. I don't know why, if this camp is really there to help people, aside from getting word out, why they're doing a TV show on this, because it really just sort of comes across as, a sideshow. But then on the other hand, I think, you know what, it has worked for some of them. There are some that are taking off a lot of weight. There are some that are sticking with it. So they are they are doing some good. I still don't have to agree with the fact they're charging people $2,000 a week to do that. I think it's bullshit. But you can't argue with the results when you look at it and say, okay, you know what? Yes, if they keep on, I haven't been able to find actually, like there are one or two people that you can still follow along, that have really progressed. They kept on going afterwards, but I think a lot of that is them, that they saw the progress they were making and they were able to continue with the stuff that they learned there, which is great. I think that's probably the point. But I just find, I can't imagine that within 2 months you're going to undo, years of bad behavior, which is a weird way to put it, but you know what I mean. And getting to a point where, oh, well, then, you know what? I'm not going to be fat anymore after going here for 2 months and spending half my year's salary on it. For those of you that are making more than that, bravo. But really, $2,000 a week is insane for anything. I can't imagine spending that on anything. Although yesterday I spent a tremendous amount of money, which I'll talk about on the weekend. Everyone's okay, but yeah, that's unrelated. But yeah, not a good day all the way around. Anyway, I don't know where that came from. Just wanted to share. By the way, yeah, it wasn't $2,000 this week, but it was a lot of money that I just did not have. But I'll tell you about later on this weekend. You'll understand. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But for right now, I'm going to leave this video here. I am going to put the show up there. If you want, you can take a look at the very first episode. The other episodes are out there. There are 2 seasons to it. And it is nice sort of seeing the success stories later on down the road. But for me, this is something that I just think there has to be a better way. And why are you charging so much fucking money for this? But give me your opinion, one way or the other, whether you agree with me or not. I don't even know if I agree with me or not at this, whether it's a good thing. I just think, yeah, you have results, but you do it for a lot less. And people are going deep in debt in order to do this. But I think this sort of shows really what we're willing to do when things get too much, get to be too much. Anyway, I've gone on for almost half an hour now. I'm sorry, I'm going to shut up. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. In the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.